I've heard it said that home is where the heart is, and I know that to be the truth. There's nothing like the sound of children laughing and playing on a lazy Saturday afternoon. The feeling of curling up by the fireplace with a cozy blanket and a great cup of coffee. The smell of a beautiful meal being prepared in the kitchen in anticipation of a holiday celebration. Home is an indelible comfort, an excellent retreat for the weary worker and the tired soul. And when our homes and hearts are full, life is just simply better. The hope of contentment inspires us daily to live in rest, to live in peace, to live knowing that there is no place like home. There is no place like hope.
You guys may be seated. We're going to have some fun today. You guys ready to have some fun? We didn't prepare anything, so I have no idea what's going to come out of my mouth in the next 30 minutes. Some of you old people looking at me like, I'm just kidding. You're not old. 0 for 2 already. Well, welcome. Welcome to Cornerstone. My name is Corey. This is my wife, Julia. And hasn't this series been fun? For those of you that have been a part of it, we're in this series that we titled No Place Like Hope. No Place Like Hope. And if you've missed the previous 2 weeks, we've kind of taken a scene from the house, put it on stage, and preached around it. If you missed the first week, Pastor Shanik and his wife, Melanie, preached from the kitchen. And I don't know about you, but that was pretty creative. You guys, I didn't think you got enough praise for how creative. I mean, 8 ingredients of a cookie tied into 8 ingredients of a great marriage. I mean, you are the man. You inspire me to be more creative. I'm going to try and be creative
Melanie,
today.
Melanie, you're the best too.
Yeah, I meant that too. Really? Already? That was a given. Melanie, very creative. Very, very good. Actually, I was sick. I was sick 2 weeks ago. My family's been battling illnesses, and last week we had our high school winter retreat, and so I haven't been to church in a couple weeks. The culture that we create in this place is hopefully when you miss coming on Sunday mornings, you miss it. And I miss this place, so I'm just excited to be back. The worship is so great. I'm so rejuvenated. Hopefully you don't get me sick. Stay away from me. Just kidding. We're talking about the bedroom today. I hope you don't stay away from me. And then last week, Pastor Reggie and his wife Hannah talked from the dining room table, right? The dining room table. And how great of a sermon did he close with that picture of Mephibosheth, right? Where he was lame in the legs, but yet when he sits at the king's table, the cloth covers his weakness, and in the presence of Jesus, we're perfected because of our belief in Jesus, because we sit at the king's table. I love this sermon series so much in how creative they've been in tying rooms to our lives and to our marriages. And there's no coincidence that we started in the kitchen, right? Because the kitchen, if you have people over, everyone kind of mingles in the kitchen. Everyone is welcome in the kitchen. Then we took it to the dining room, right? Dining room is where fellowship happens. It's where friendships happen, but it takes time to get there. It's where truth is exposed. It's where you deal with bills, as he talked about. But this week, we're talking about the bedroom, and it's kind of in sequence, right? You go from the kitchen to the dining room to the bedroom, and hopefully you're not inviting anybody to your bedroom but your spouse. Because the bedroom symbolizes so much more in marriage, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about this morning.
Yeah. So here's a question for you. What does a bedroom represent to you? You have to think about that. Like we already said, what the kitchen represents, what the dining room represents, right? Even the living room has its own function within the house, right? But now it's time to talk about the bedroom. So when I thought about what the bedroom represents to me, I thought of things like closeness, friendship, companionship, love, and most importantly, the bedroom to me represents intimacy. That's what makes it so special and so unique within the house. Is this is the room where intimacy truly happens between you and your spouse. Which leads me to say this: Who should be invited into your bedroom? To the kitchen, everyone is welcome, right? Friends come over, everyone hangs out. You're dating someone and you want to cook a meal together, that's great. It's a fun date, right? Then you sit down at the table and you eat. Still, everyone is welcome. But who is invited into your bedroom? Is it your boyfriend? Is it your girlfriend? Is it your fiance? Because now that you have a ring on it, right, it's for life. Who is invited into your bedroom? God says that only a spouse is invited into your bedroom. And that's how we should keep it. As Christians, we should take a look at what God says about marriage. And he says that, hey, it's, between two married people. That's what the bedroom is for. It's such a sacred place in the house, which is why only a specific person is invited to your bed.
Yeah, and in vows, I'm excited because this week I get to do my first wedding. Woohoo! Yeah! I don't know why they asked, but they did. But at our wedding, it is fun. Like, when you talk about vows, many people don't realize that when I said yes to Julia, I also said no to everybody else. And so sometimes when you make a commitment, what's more important than the commitment that you make is the commitment that you're not making with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is why marriage should be the most intimate relationship you ever experience in your life or within your lifetime. So think about it. You have all kinds of relationships in your life between, a mother and a daughter, right, or a son and a father, or even, fiancés, boyfriends, girlfriends, any type of relationship you can think about. None are as intimate as marriage. So God designed marriage to be such a unique experience for you because he wanted you to feel like you truly belong somewhere, which is where marriage comes in, which is where intimacy comes in.
Yeah, so we're talking about intimacy today. We're going to talk a little bit about sex, which is going to be fun now that I all have your attention. But the focus is really going to be on intimacy. There's going to be some fun challenges. We're going to have some fun with this stuff. No place like hope. But we want you to know up front that we're not experts. Shockingly, I know, we're not experts.
I am.
We just want to be open. Can't control them, huh, man? Just kidding. We just want to be open and transparent this morning with you, letting you know that we're only on year 4.
Okay, I would like to make a correction here. So in
year
core
4.
years, that's about 16 years in a
Wow.
regular marriage. I'd just like to let you
Wow.
know.
We might need some marriage counseling after this. Wow. Shots fired. Okay.
You're just so much fun.
I am.
You're just so much
that's
fun
right.
that years
nice
just keep
recovery.
piling
You're
on.
paddling backwards. But the reality is you don't start off becoming a good husband or a good wife, right? It takes time. And you don't become, or you don't have a great marriage just because you read a good book on marriage. You don't have a great marriage because you heard a great sermon or you were a part of a sermon series like this. It takes time. And I like to believe that, yeah, we're only on year 4, but the reality is we're pretty wise in marriage because we watch you guys all screw up and learn from it. Just kidding. We're on a roll today, right? Look at that. Well, here's our verse for today. I'm going to take a verse out of context, and I'm going to tell you why. John 10:10 is a verse that is really talking about the law. It says, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. That's the law, that's religion, that's rules and regulations, that's Satan, right? He wants to steal, kill, and destroy. But Jesus has come to give us life and life to the fullest. And I want to tie that verse into our marriage because I believe that God came to give your marriage life and life to the fullest. And so the question I have for you is your marriage alive? Is it truly alive? Is it full? Are you enjoying your time with the person that you made a commitment with in your life? And if you're not, maybe something needs to change. Maybe you need to get a perspective, or maybe you got to find some inspiration from a young couple who is definitely not in the honeymoon stage because you make me mad sometimes. Right? Marriage, you make your spouse mad? We're going to talk about some fun fights today, okay? We really are going to be transparent with you. But my question for you is your marriage alive? In fact, my real question for you is your marriage beautiful? Like when people look at your marriage, does it represent beauty? And not the marriage that you are portraying or faking. I'm talking about the real life marriage when you're home with your spouse tonight and it's just the two of you and you guys are laying down in bed. Is your marriage beautiful? Would people describe your marriage as beautiful? And so today all we're going to talk about is 5 ways to have a beautiful marriage. 5 ways to have a beautiful marriage. So if you're taking notes, I encourage you guys to write this down. Number 1 is fight for intimacy. To have a beautiful marriage, you have to fight for intimacy.
Yeah. So I'm a teacher, just in case you guys don't know. So I had to go on and figure out exactly what intimacy meant. So I had to go find a definition for it, and I'll read it for you. It's pretty simple. So here's what definition for intimacy is. It's close familiarity or friendship, a private, cozy atmosphere, and an intimate act, which is sex. So notice that it has several parts to it. When I used to think about intimacy, I would cringe at it a little bit because, I would think of my parents, and my parents are pretty open
what?
about their relationship. Hold on.
She said it.
They are. You can tell that they love each other. So I didn't like the word intimacy. I don't know. To me, it was just, ew. I'm in 6th grade. I don't want to talk about it. But intimacy is not all sexual. It's actually, a lot of intimacy is non-sexual. It's the special type of closeness and bond that you develop between you and your significant other. So that's why I wanted to go ahead and read that definition for you, that close familiarity or friendship. So friendship has to be established with your significant other, which is so cool. And also a private, cozy atmosphere. So a private, notice that private, it's not for everyone, right? It's only for you and your significant other. And also it involves sex too. So to me, in order to establish that non-sexual intimacy, 3 key factors have to be involved or have to be established for me. So here they are: loyalty, trust, and security. I have to feel and know that all 3 are present in order for me to feel safe around Corey, and in order for that sense of belonging and sense of intimacy to appear in our relationship. So loyalty comes from me watching Corey time after time, proving his love to me over and over again. I don't have to worry about where he is when he's not with me, who he's talking to on social media or through text. I don't have to worry about him because he has proven to me that he is loyal to me. Okay, so the second was trust. So because I know that he's loyal to me, what do? I trust him, right? I trust in our relationship, and it gives me so much peace. And the third component is security. So security is a byproduct of knowing that he's loyal and that I trust him. It brings the sense of security, right? I know that I can be my true self around him. I don't have to worry about how I should act. I can be exposed. I can be raw, right? I can be myself around him without a fear of being judged for who I am. Because I know that you love me because you continuously show that to me.
I do love you, baby. But for real, this is this is a marriage series, but this is really just a series for everybody. I mean, singles in this place, and for those of you that are married, how do you establish loyalty, security, and trust? It's being someone who is loyal is all about doing stuff that honors and respects your spouse, even if they would never find out. So, like, what kind of? I'll talk to the men. What kind of man are you? Are you the type of man that flirts with coworkers because you can get away with it, or are you the type of man that is loyal to your spouse? Because that's huge. You know, character in men, integrity in men is about being somebody that if the curtain or the veil were to be torn, what kind of person is present? What kind of person is exposed? Are you scared of airing out your dirty laundry? Because loyalty is so much more than me just telling my wife that I love her and showing her that I'm loyal when she can see it. Loyalty is all about showing it when she can't see it. And that's really huge. And that creates trust. And so if you're planning on getting married, be loyal to your future spouse now. Like that is so huge. And we're going to talk about it in a little bit, is as I hate it when parents tell their kids, don't have sex because the Bible says so. Okay, that is a lame reason, at least for me, the Bible says so. There's so much more in sexual relationship than just the Bible says so. And there's so much that kids aren't realizing that they're exposing themselves to by engaging in sexual activity before you're married. And so really, be a loyal person to the person you don't even know yet, to the person that you eventually will give your life to and the rest of your life to and the rest of your love to. So be loyal now in this season of your life, whether you have a spouse or not. And number two is never talk bad about your spouse. This is so easy to do in marriage. And I know you've talked a lot about this, about teachers in your school talking negatively about their husband not doing this or that. And it's so easy for us dudes, when we get around with just dudes, we can complain about the things that frustrate us, because in marriage, there are a lot of things that frustrate you. They talk about it as like 80-20 principle, right? Many people have affairs because they neglect the 80% great person that they have with and sleep with the 20% that they want. It's the 80-20%. And so, yeah, there might be 20% of Julia that I don't like, and it is so easy to focus on that. Why? Because if you have 99 people praising you, it's only the one person that's not praising you that frustrates you. So it's so easy to focus on the negativity, or it's so easy to focus on the things that she doesn't do or that she does do that drive me nuts. And I want to challenge you as a man and as a woman is don't be that person that focuses on the negativity. Pastor Shanik had it as one of their ingredients. He said, you should be your spouse's biggest encourager, not your spouse's biggest critic. And that spoke so loudly to me, because I want to be a man that, yeah, I could focus on the 20% that she doesn't do well, but I want to, when I get around my guy friends, to be talking about the 80% that she does great. Because my wife is amazing. I want people to know that marriage is amazing. I want students, when they see the way that I talk about my spouse, want to have a marriage like us, because I'm believing in my spouse and praising her for the things she does well, not the things she doesn't. So create intimacy. You have to fight for intimacy. The reason why we're talking about using this word fight is because every area is obvious, but every area requires work. And my favorite thing about being a pastor is being exposed to a lot of different marriages. And I just want to give some praise right now. One of my favorite marriages to watch is Rick and Libby Stumler. And I know as soon as I said that, Rick's face probably just got beet red. And he probably said under his breath, seriously? Seriously, Corey? But to be honest, like, you can tell like how much they love each other if you're around them just for a moment. We get the privilege of spending a lot of time with them. And I hope when I'm 50 that you look at me the way that Libby looks at Rick, for real. I hope that's true in our life. And so fight for intimacy.
Yeah, and I would like to extend the same compliment to my parents as well.
Yeah.
They've just done such a great job at showing us exactly what a beautiful marriage should look like. They have 6 kids, so their life is so chaotic and so busy with everything. But at the end of the day, I see that it's a union between my mom and my dad, and the kids are on the outside of it. Like we were never able to come between or in that circle of just Tim and Jenny. And I'm so appreciative of that, because I left the house, but my mom and dad are still in the house, right? And if we allow the kids to, I'm going to use the word penetrate, okay, that immediate circle of your intimate relationship, what happens after your kids leave? What happens after your kids leave? Do you even know your spouse anymore? And my mom and dad still know each other. They love each other so well. It's because they married each other, and they stayed married to each other instead of staying married to their kids, if that makes sense. I see that so often.
Yeah, marriages, you and your spouse don't join your kids' lives. Your kids joined your life. And so make sure you're fighting for the intimacy in your marriage, because like she said with her parents, it's something I can praise my parents for, is I could tell that my parents loved each other, and your kids are watching. And so what example are you sharing towards your kids who are watching every move, who, yeah, they might be grossed out that mom's all, or that dad's all, yeah, because it's never mom, that dad's all over mom. But the reality is I want my kids to be grossed out by me, because I want them to know how obsessed I am with their mom. And that's so important. So number 1 is fight for intimacy. Number 2 is fight for peace. Fight for peace.
Yeah, and peace, how is peace created in a relationship? And peace is created through trust. Peace is created through trust. So you have to spend a lot of time together, right, in order to trust someone, right? So, which is why this sermon series has been so good for me too. God has shown me so many different things through writing this sermon. Right, you start at the kitchen of the house, right? Maybe then you go to the living room and then or the dining room, right? But all those rooms represent again different functions, but they also represent different time, right? Time to establish specific things, to reveal a lot of truth to each other, right? At the dining room table, right? To spend quality time in the living room, right? To spend more quality time together in the kitchen, right? Where you serve one another, right? And the bedroom comes absolutely last, right? There's a natural progression to it. And the reason for that is because it all requires a lot of time. And how do you achieve peace in a relationship is through trust. And trust comes with time. So don't jump in and move so quickly, right? Don't be afraid to take a step back and make sure that you trust that person before you make a lifetime commitment with that person, right?
Yeah, like, so the bed, if you think about it, we're going to take this bed and use a picture of a bed represents rest. It represents peace. And so not only does your marriage represent peace, but where is your peace in your walk with Christ? Because Christ is the person that gives you peace, that peace that transcends all understanding, that peace that gives you hope in the midst of chaos. And so is your bedroom a representation of peace and rest? Because you do know that you spend a third of your life sleeping. A third of your life sleeping. And so when I think about the bedroom, when I think about the peace that we have in our marriage, the peace that we have in our marriage is only because of a peace that I have with a real relationship with Jesus. And I know that she has a real relationship with Jesus. In fact, there's so much scripture around this idea of peace. You have John 14:27, where Jesus says, "My peace I give to you." You have Matthew 11:28. It says, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest or peace. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." You have 1 Thessalonians 5:17. It says, "Pray without ceasing." Right? And I've talked about this before. In the Greek, that means come to rest. So how do you pray without ceasing? It's having a personal relationship with Jesus where you know God's got you. It produces a peace in your life to be able to look at the chaos that's going on in your life or chaos in your marriage and have peace knowing that God's with you in your experience. You have Philippians 4:4-6. It says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but through prayer and petition with thanksgiving, make your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will be yours." And so I just want to challenge you, is your relationship, is your marriage a byproduct of your peaceful relationship with God? Do you trust God? You know, Psalm 46:10, "Be still and know that I am God." There's so many scriptures that give us this picture of having the peace of Christ in our lives, because a peaceful marriage is a byproduct of having the peace of God. And the peace of God comes from knowing your identity outside of your identity from your spouse. And so I just really want to challenge you. You fight for intimacy, you fight for peace, and that leads us to number 3, you fight for transparency.
Well, this point is actually really funny, because this is when we talk about forgiveness. So Monday night when we sat down, or before we sat down to write the sermon, we got in a huge argument over how we were going to write the sermon, because I have a better way to write it.
Because you're a control freak?
And Corey does not have a better way. I'm just kidding.
When you put two control freaks in a room to come together and unify and talk about marriage, you better believe your marriage is going to be stretched and attacked, and man,
yeah.
I forgive you.
And here we are talking about transparency. We're talking about transparency here. So here's the thing. To be transparent, you will have to be honest with your significant other. I know it's like, well, duh. I didn't have to come here to know this, right? But here's the thing. When you're honest with your spouse or with your significant other, you cannot be shifting blame. When you're having those difficult conversations, well, you did this, well, she did this, well, you did this to me, and that's why I didn't do this. Like, you have an explanation for everything that you did or did not do, right? And it's your significant other's fault for your behavior, right? So you've got to stop having this victim mentality in your relationship where everything ends up being your spouse's fault in some shape or form. Again, you're not going to go anywhere. You will, yeah, you can be transparent and still shift the blame. And then you break that sense of intimacy with that person because you feel like there is not 100% honesty going on in a relationship. So again, you have to stop shifting blame. And you also have to be kind in your arguments. And you have to fight fair, which you're going to talk about in a second here. But just keep in mind that it takes two to tango here, right? It's not always going to be your spouse's fault for everything that goes wrong in your marriage or in your relationship. It takes two to tango here.
Yeah, so that requires conversation. So here's my question for you is how do you deal with conflict in your marriage? Because it's a given. If you're a fiance or dating, you will fight with that person. You will think about stabbing them, maybe. Just being transparent. And then praying over them and asking God to bring them back to life. But for real, like, okay, we're normal human beings. If you were to know us, we are inappropriate. I am inappropriate, normal human being. And we deal with life, right? You deal with great news, right? It's super easy to love your spouse when things are going great, you know, and then you deal with bad news and how you deal with conflict, how you deal with frustration, how you deal, like what she said, this it's like a hamster wheel. If you get on the hamster wheel and you're always shifting blame towards your spouse, it's just going to keep going in circle. Well, I'm not doing this because you're doing this. Well, someone's got to forgive. Someone's got to be the first to take a step and say, look, I want to get off this hamster wheel because I'm done with this cycle, and I want to resolve the conflict that we're dealing with. And so I got two thoughts on how to resolve conflict. The first one is you do have to fight fair. And I have to praise my wife with this because ever since I met her, she has been incredibly fair in fighting. It is so easy as a man when I'm frustrated with her or when my ego is blowing up and I don't want to admit when I'm wrong. It is so easy for me to admit when I'm wrong when I know my wife is looking at things from my perspective, even if my perspective is wrong, which doesn't happen often. It actually only happened once in our marriage, and I ended up being right, so I was wrong about being right. Just kidding. I stole that from my uncle. That was a funny little joke. Anyways, you have to fight fair, like for real. Be someone.
So much to learn, Corey.
Duh. You have to fight fair. Put your ego and pride at the door because your spouse is worth it. And the second one is forgive often. And this was funny because Pastor talked about this 2 weeks ago. He brought up Ephesians 4:26 and 27, which I understand now why it's in the Bible, but I kind of wish it wasn't. It talks about don't let the sun go down on your anger. Because you've all been in that place where he talked about, like, they stay up till 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning to deal with conflict. That ain't us, okay? In fact, this happened last month. I got mad at her for something that I can't even tell you now what I was mad about. But I gave her the cold shoulder in bed, like, don't even talk to me, don't touch me, ignore you, I got to sleep. And then we woke up, and I didn't talk to her, right? And I leave, and she texts me, and she's like, so you're not even going to say goodbye? Because we have, like, this routine, because we only see each other for, like, 20 seconds in the morning. And you know what I did? I gave her the no text back, right? Let her know that I'm mad at you, and you're going to feel my hatred right now because you did me wrong. And so what happened then, we don't even get to see each other every day until, like, 4 o'clock. And so the whole work day, I got stuff and responsibilities to do, and guess what I'm thinking about? Why? Because I couldn't forgive over something stupid because I can't even tell you what it was about a month later. And so here I am, and I know her as a teacher, she probably didn't do as great of a job teaching that day because you're wondering about what I'm doing, how mad I am, right? I didn't respond to a text because I wanted to be 14 again. And it's like all of a sudden she comes to my office at 4 o'clock, and I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I'm sick and tired of feeling this way, right? Because forgiveness or unforgiveness only affects you. My youth pastor used to say unforgiveness is like swallowing rat poison and expecting the other person to die. Like, you have to just, in marriage, you have to understand going into marriage, in your marriage, you just have to forgive often. Some of you in this room, Pastor made a joke, but I guarantee you with a room this large, there was someone that fought on the way to church. I think we fought on the way to church. Didn't we have a little bit?
We did when we got in the car.
I was rude. I was disrespectful.
Yeah, but Corey does such a good job of apologizing for when he's wrong. You know, he is quick to admit and to ask for forgiveness, and he's really intentional when he forgives. Like, he looks me in the eyes, not just one eye.
Just your one eye, your good eye.
But he looks me in the eyes and he says, "Forgive me."
I make her forgive me. I don't say, "Hey, I'm sorry." I say, "Hey, will you forgive me?"
Well, yeah,
then she has to say yes or no.
And I don't say, and I don't respond with it's okay, because it's not okay. I say, "Yes, I forgive you." It just brings a different atmosphere into our relationship. So in the car, we were able, then Corey prayed on the way to church, and now we're all good. But
Thank you, Jesus.
Like any married couple, we have arguments all the time. We're just, I have a strong personality.
Shocking.
Corey has a strong personality. So if we don't check ourselves, we're just going to be fighting with each other all the time, and that's not what I want my marriage to be. I have declared my marriage to be peaceful, and I'm going to fight for that. And that requires me to do a lot of forgiving, and also to ask for forgiveness a lot.
Yeah.
It goes both ways. I'm not saying that I'm always the one forgiven. I ask for forgiveness as well, because I know that even though I am just 1% of the time wrong, but I still have to ask for that forgiveness.
I used that joke
from my
earlier, so it's not
spouse.
funny. You can try another
But
time.
I also have another point to make
Hold on.
here.
Are you moving on?
No, I have
Oh.
another point to make. So
Uh-oh.
when we were writing this sermon, we can be pretty funny and talk about lighthearted things, right? Small types of arguments that you can move past, But what happens when there are big fights in marriage? It's easy to forgive if Corey just hurt my feelings in the morning, right? That's easy to forgive. But what happens when there are huge transgressions? I don't have to name them all for you to already have a couple in your head, right? Because the longer you're married, chances are there are large mountains you had to, conquer, right? In your relationship, because you're married to an imperfect person. So the chances are they have hurt you in some major ways, right? So you're sitting there, you're looking at us, you're like, wow, they've only been married for like 3.5 years or so. They don't know what they're talking about. But let me challenge you with this thought. I want you to think about God's relationship with you as a person. I want you to think about how much forgiving God has had to do in order to retain that sense of intimacy with humanity. How much forgiving he has had to do. And that, I hope that is a shift in perspective for you. To never stop forgiving your spouse, because when you entered into that relationship, you are in a covenant with your spouse. You're going to have to do a lot of forgiving, because Jesus has to do a lot of forgiving. And I hope that this gives you hope and gives you strength to continue to forgive your spouse, because the more often you forgive, the better off your relationship will be.
Yeah, and she is really good at forgiving. I kind of am, but I hold grudges. Anybody hold grudges? Yeah, my girl. Come on. For someone that holds grudges, it is hard, because I'm the type of dude that if she upsets me and knows it, and then she's like trying to get all cuddly, but then she gives me my space, but I'm the type of dude that doesn't want space. I want you to get cuddly with me so that I can reject you. Like, when I'm mad at her, she'll give me space, and I'll be like, "Why aren't you coming over here?" And she goes, "Because I know you need space." I'm like, "Yeah, but I want to reject you." But that's not right. I'm working on that, right? Because to be transparent, you got to forgive often. You can't have grudges. And this is what really stuck out to me, because as the youth pastor here, I get to work with all your kids. And so the reason for why we're asking the question is your marriage beautiful, and how do you deal with conflict, is because your kids are watching, especially how you deal with conflict. And if you're the type of couple that just yells at each other, you are sending the wrong signals to your kids on how to deal with conflict. I hope that when my kids grow up, they look at their mom and dad and they see, okay, there are real issues, but they deal with them, and they deal with them appropriately. And so I want to just challenge you to be people that are quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. And be people that give the other person the benefit of the doubt in our life. And so we fight for intimacy, we fight for peace, we fight for transparency, and then we fight for each other sexually. Bow, chicka, wow, wow. What you all been waiting for, the good stuff.
Yes. So here's the thing. In marriage, specifically the type of intimacy that happens in marriage, it will require a lot of sacrificial type love. You're gonna have to do things that you don't want to do in marriage and serve your spouse when you don't want to, when you're tired, right? When you've had a really long day and you just
Amen.
want to go to bed, wrap yourself in the blanket and go to sleep for 72 hours. Like I know those kinds of days, but that's why it requires a lot of sacrificial type of love within that relationship. And in marriage, you can connect in four different areas, right? You can connect mentally, spiritually, you connect emotionally, but you also connect physically. You have to connect physically, which is what makes marriage so unique. Marriage is a different type of relationship because you get to connect with each other physically. So there's a scripture that Pastor Shannick and Mel talked about 2 weeks ago. Let's see, it's Genesis 2:24, right? This is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one what? One flesh. They become one flesh. What does that mean? They become one flesh. They go to the movies together? I don't know.
Nope.
No. You all know what one flesh is.
Good stuff.
It's the sex part of the relationship. That's what one flesh is. God has sanctified marriage with sex. And we cannot be ashamed talking about it, which is something that I feel like I have overcome that part. Because again, sex is such a significant part of our relationship, because you cannot have it anywhere else except for with your significant other. So it's got to be talked about in church.
Yeah, in fact, the reason why I said, as parents, don't use the quote like the Bible says so, stay pure. Students, especially students in this day and age where they have information and access to so much, they want to know why. They want to know the why behind the reason why the Bible says to save yourself to marriage. It's not because God doesn't want you to have fun in this age. It's because God wants you to have the most fun without guilt, without shame, in the context of marriage. And so if I can really help students understand that sex is so much more than just a fun, pleasurable act, that it really defines your marriage. It really shows love, and especially for men. I mean, my love language is touch. My second love language is touch. My third love language is touch me again. And so I just really think it's important as...
And I have to use words of affirmation.
Yeah, I'm big in words too. So just fish me with some good words. Tell me how good looking I am, especially when I do my dances. Be like, you look good, honey. Come over here. Yep. Too much? But seriously, in order to have a dynamic and fun and great sexual marriage, there has to be time and commitment to be sexual. Not just time and commitment in your marriage, but time and commitment to be sexual. Remember, they talked about it in those 8 ingredients, is sex starts, not in the bedroom, but in the kitchen. It starts with being a husband that's in tune with what's going on in your spouse's, in your wife's world. It's about being available. It's about not just telling her that you love her, but telling her why you love her. And so here's my challenge for you, okay? You ready for a challenge? A sexual challenge for you spouses. I'm going to challenge you to have sex every single day for just this week. Just this week. And 2 things are going to happen. I promise you that your marriage will be in a better place next Sunday than it is today. But
Cody?
that also doesn't mean,
Cody loves it.
So does Steve. He gave me the standing clap. See, all the dudes are like, yeah, did you hear that preacher? That was good preaching. Corey, you brought down the house today. What'd I say? I don't know, but I'm having sex every day. But what that challenge is it's not just that moment of pleasure. It's, husbands, you are agreeing that when you come home from work, you're leaving work at work. When you come home from work, you're going to be in tune to what's going on in your family. You're going to help out with the kids. You're maybe help out with dinner. You're going to communicate. And remember, what works for us might not work for you. So you got to have to communicate with your spouse on what is supposed to be happening, on the commitment and the involvement with the family, and coming home and being in tune with your wife. Maybe sit down with your wife for the first 10 minutes when you get work and say, hey, look, how can I be better right now today? How can I help you? In fact, my marriage, for real, Julia would tell me when I would come home from work that my attitude, the first moment I walked in the door was chaos. It's because I brought the chaos from work home. And so what I did, I started making this commitment just a couple months ago where I would listen to worship music on the way home. Now, I'm a hip-hop guy, so I love hip-hop. So that was a huge transition for me to be listening to worship music on the way home. But I promise you, it's changed my marriage. Because when I walk in the door, my attitude is in the right place. My mind is right spiritually, and I come home engaged, and it's helped our sex life, to be honest. And so, yes, the challenge is to have sex every single day, because I believe that part of marriage is when you get older and you get used to your person, you don't fight for your person. And so that's not saying that, you're going to give your spouse a reason to go look for somewhere else. No, that's on him. He should be a man of integrity, but also be a woman that's in tune to the needs going on in your marriage, to the needs going on with your husband, and both be involved. And again, this is time and commitment. In fact, the 5 Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage has 5 areas to have great sex. It's in romance. Be romantic. Remember when you first started dating your wife or your husband? That means get a date night if you have to. We have a date night first Thursday of every month. Don't text me. Don't call me. First Thursday is going down. Date night. Foreplay. It's required. It's necessary, right? Because dudes are like a microwave. Women are like a crock pot. I like to say men are like an automatic start engine, and women are like diesel. It takes some time to warm up.
Not a fan of either of those comparisons, to be honest.
It takes time. It takes privacy. Again, this isn't water cooler conversations. You know what happened? You know what went down last night? Yeah. Your wife wants to know that what happens in the bedroom stays in the bedroom. That's a big part, dudes. And exclusivity. And your wife wants to know that your eyes are only for her. And this is huge, especially in our culture. I think I want to real quick mention pornography, and then we're going to be done. Pornography is destroying marriages. Because it shares lies. It's not real. It shares unrealistic expectations. I like to call them sexpectations. And so if this is something that you struggle with, guy or girl, we have staff in place to help you. We want you to know that this is a judgment-free zone. This is something that I've received God's grace on. So I know personally how to overcome and deal with this issue. We want you to know that this family, that this is a safe place to grow. This is a safe place to overcome. We're not going to shame you or judge you. We want the best marriage for you. We want the best sex for you in your marriage context. And so we want to be here to give you health. But I don't believe yet we're still fully understanding the damage that pornography is doing. And if your kids have smartphones, parents, please do not be naive. They have access to more kinds of pornographic images than you can imagine. If you think your kids aren't doing it, that's probably a good reason that they are doing it. So we have resources on zoestudents.com. It's our student webpage. I have resources for parents on stuff to create locks for your kids' smartphones. They should not have any access to anything. You need to be smart about this. You need to be protecting your kids, your marriage, and their kids, and your kids' future marriage. And so last but not least is fight to belong.
Yeah, and this is a huge point. Fight to belong. I can only speak, for myself, but for me, a sense of belonging comes from knowing that I'm valued in this relationship. And how do I feel valued? How does Corey make me feel valued? Is by spending quality time with me. When he is, when we're hanging out together, I know that he's actually with me. His thoughts are not with some other woman, or with work, or with something else. I know that he is present with me. He makes me feel valued in that moment. I know that his eyes are only for me, which gives me a sense of belonging. Some practical advice. Yeah, absolutely. Dating is such an essential part of your relationship. You have to make date nights a priority, especially after kids come. You have to schedule those because they'll just get away from you. And when you do go on those dates, why don't you talk to your spouse? Put your phones away. Don't even leave them on the table. They should be off the table. You should be looking at your spouse. Ask them questions, not just how was your day, but specific detailed questions that are relevant in their lives currently. Why don't you ask them about their dreams, their goals, right? Why don't you spend time praising them for something that they did? Let them know that you notice everything that they do in your relationship and in your house, how hard they work. We're so prone, we're much more likely to give a compliment to a stranger to make them feel good, but we criticize our spouse. We only see everything that they don't do, and we let them know, right?
The 20%.
You need to start letting them know that you see everything they did. Like yesterday, Corey hung a light in our kitchen, and I walked
I'm now
around
an electrician. If you need help, holla at your
I
boy.
know, he did so good. But I walked around that light 20 times. Oh, I just love this light. Oh, you did so good. This is my favorite light ever. I think I've said it at least 20 times, but I really wanted him to know that the work that he does does not go unnoticed in the house.
I thought you just really liked the light.
I do like the light, but I really wanted you to know that I like the light.
I look good in that light.
Yes.
There really is only one thing on our mind.
It's so important to know that someone...
You missed that. You'll get it on your way home.
It's really important to know that someone in the relationship approves of you, approves of who you are, right? Because when you feel that sense of belonging, you can be your truest self around that person, right? That's where the good, the bad, and the ugly can be exposed without a fear of being judged, because you know that your significant other is there to build you up continuously, and you do that through encouragement. And going on those date nights, the practical way to keep up with upkeep your intimacy, right? And bringing them up as a person is so essential. And when we were writing this sermon together, so when we were on this point, a fight to belong, God gave me this revelation. Why Jesus referred to his church as the bride. I finally saw it really clearly. Because marriage is the most intimate relationship you will experience in your life, guess what Jesus is trying to do here? He's trying to get you to have the most intimate relationship with him throughout your life. And this is it. This is why we are his bride. He wants to connect with us spiritually, emotionally, right? He wants to connect with us mentally. He wants to encourage us. He wants to bring us up as people, right? We are his bride. We're his bride because he wants to be in that kind of intimate relationship with us. Such a beautiful picture of marriage and such a beautiful picture of Jesus's heart for us.
Yeah, we say it all the time here at Cornerstone is that this isn't the church, you're the church. And so, yeah, we're going to dismiss here in a moment, but church isn't over because church is just leaving because you're the church. Yeah. And so that beautiful picture is that Christ, you do know that Christ was crucified naked? Can you imagine the shame that was brought being crucified naked? And just like Christ gave of his body in the most intimate way for his bride, the church, you and I, is so too we're supposed to be giving our bodies to our spouse. We're supposed to be giving everything, just like Christ gave everything. And so that's our challenge for us today, is if you want to have a great sex life, you notice that only 20% of our points was actually about sex. You have to fight for intimacy. You have to fight for peace. You have to fight for transparency. You have to fight for each other. And you have to fight to belong, because every single one of us in this room, we want to belong. Not just in our marriages, but we want to belong in the church. We want to belong in society. We want to belong in our community. And so I want to encourage you as we close out this morning is you belong here. We have a lot of people that can help you in your walk with Christ, that can help you in your marriage, that can help you in a lot of areas of life. And we want to do life with you. We want to let you know that you belong here. You don't have to believe everything we believe to belong, that God has great things for you, that God wants to redeem your story or reignite your story or give you new passions, that we are as together in a marriage, we can do more together than we could ever do apart. So can we do more together than we could ever do apart? And so we want you to know that as a church, we're starting this brand new series next week called Home at Cornerstone. It's kind of to piggyback off this scene that we're the family of the bride of Christ. We are the family of the church. Like the people in the world need the things that we have. And so that's my question for you as we dismiss today. Is your marriage beautiful? If it's not, you need to have some conversations today. And as you walk out of this place, know, church, that you're loved and there's nothing you can do about it. We hope to see you guys next week. Bring a friend, bring somebody as we get into this Easter season and have a lot of fun as we talk about Jesus and Jesus resurrected. We love you guys. We'll see you all next week. Have a good one.